today we're in for a special treat, how to get a job in data science. But before we begin, I would like to bring forward our president of the Atlanta University Center Data Science Club and vice president, Bolshai Waldrop and Olisa Waith. Go for it.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shai Waldrop, and I am the president of the AUC Data Science Club, and I am a third-year PhD student at Morehouse School of Medicine studying biomedical sciences. Olisa, you're muted.
Hi, my name is Olisa Waith. I am a third-year PhD student at Morehouse School of Medicine. So we kind of just wanted to give a brief introduction to the Data Science Club. If you're interested in learning more about data science, its applications, and even get like some hands-on experience, you should consider joining the club. We'll be having many events and speakers to look forward to in the coming days. So just like, yeah, hit us up.
And our mission as a club is really just to get everyone to see how fun, easy, and widely applicable data science can be, because anyone can do it. And so we would like to invite you all to become part of the initiative. And membership is open now. It's free. You don't have to pay for anything. We just are going to send out emails with a Zoom link, and you're welcome to come. Now, this club is for current AUC students only. However, if you are interested in connecting with us outside of that, please feel free to contact us at swaldrop@msm.edu or owaith@msm.edu, because we would love to have you. We will be having our first meeting sometime next month, so please be on the lookout for that. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for joining us. We're really excited to see what you all will do this semester. So in the video, there was a little bit about the AUC Data Science Initiative. We work across Clark Atlanta University, Morehouse College, Morehouse School of Medicine, and Spelman College, and also the AUC Library. And we were funded by the United Health Group. And so I just want to give a couple of announcements at the start of the hour, a few more. This fall, we are bringing AI for All to the Atlanta University Center for students and the AUC. If you're interested, please let us know. We're going to be offering it via a 1 credit hour course. It's fully funded. You're going to talk about AI, this intersection of AI, and how does it impact Black America. And we're really excited to have Professor Yvonne Phillips at Morehouse College on board as our faculty lead. So let us know if you're interested. Also, on Friday, September 24th, we will have our inaugural Student Data Science Symposium. So we're doing an all call for all AUC students to come and give lightning talks. This event is free for HBCU students and faculty. So please come join us. If you want to sign up to be an exhibitor, to connect with students, let us know. We're also asking students to submit their resumes so we can put together a resume book. So we're really looking forward to this. Come join us on Friday, September 24th. So today, without further ado, like I said, we're in for a treat. I wish I probably had this many moons ago, but hey, I'm looking forward to seeing what we will learn today from our awesome panelists. So Dr. Sri Taylor, she leads the Government Analytics and Innovation team at Elder Research. She's formally trained as a computational mathematician and has had a really interesting career path, from government to private to nonprofit sectors, from running her own business to working in higher education to working at other businesses, just a really wealth of experience. She earned both her bachelor's and master's in mathematics from Clark Atlanta University and her PhD in computational applied math from North Carolina State. She also did a postdoc at the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences. So we do welcome you, Dr. Taylor, back to the AUC. We're glad to have you here. Another panelist is Dr. Ed Ray Goins, who's a professor of mathematics at Pomona College in California. So he was previously a professor at Purdue University, and he enjoys working on elliptic curves. And over the years, he's given a number of trainings and workshops on how to apply for fellowships. So we're really lucky to have him come and share his wealth of information and his key nuggets on how to put together a graduate fellowship application. He's also the former president of NAM, and he also is the co-lead and founding director of Adjoint, which is a summer research program for Black mathematicians. So great to have you here, Ed Ray, back in the AUC. where your brother was at Morehouse, right? So, and our third panelist is Reggie Leonard. He is at UVA's Data Science Initiative, which is now the School of Data Science. He is over there. He does all things with recruiting and helping students basically level up to secure the bag or secure the job, so to speak. So he enjoys interacting with folks, and he's been, he launched the Black and Data Professional Network via a series of webinars and networking events. He also, his life includes being on the board of a STEAM nonprofit geared towards underrepresented minorities. He also serves on board of local arts and nonprofits, and we're really lucky to have him here to talk about how do you develop that resume? How do you act in an interview so you can really put that best data foot forward? So we're really happy to have you here today, Reggie. So with that, I'm going to let the panelists take it away. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. And Ed Ray, I think you're the first one up on deck.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Washington. Certainly is a pleasure to be here. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. Just 1 second. Okay. Well, first, let me say it is a pleasure to be back here in the AUC. I've actually run several conferences at Spelman and at Morehouse, and certainly my heart is there in Atlanta with the various HBCUs. What I'm going to talk about today are not just ways in which you can secure funding for graduate school, but in particular, I want to focus on what's called the NSF GRFP. This is the Graduate Research Fellowship Program. I will openly say that these slides are not mine. They actually belong to Dr. Ellen Carpenter, who works at the National Science Foundation. So I want to give all credit to her for the information that's here. And I believe that the slides will be available to you since, of course, there's going to be a lot of information here, and we're only going to have time just to touch on a few of the ideas. What I first want to do before I even try to jump into any of this is just ask a basic question. What is the National Science Foundation? I believe, Mr. Taylor, you should be able to pull up a poll. So if we can put that out there for the audience, just
the poll is up. The poll is up.
Right. Yeah, just I'm curious, what is the NSF?
We'll have actually a poll readout at the end.
Okay, great.
But everybody answer it now.
Yeah, please do. And let me know when there's enough answers, and then we can go ahead and we can move on to the next part. So yeah,
you can go ahead and move on.
Okay. All right. So simply put, NSF is a branch of the government that focuses on funding scientists. It's headquartered in Alexandria, Virginia. There's just under 2,000 employees that are there and provides about 1/4 of the total federal support for basic science research in the United States. It turns out that there are other organizations out there like the National Institutes of Health, the NIH, they give a little bit more money, but still the NIH is a great place, sorry, the NSF is a great place to go if you're looking for funding to do research in things like data science. I believe that Dr. Washington, you worked for the NSF for a couple of years or so. I'm actually joking, she actually helped to raise, I guess, distribute several tens of millions of dollars to various individuals who are applying for funding here from the NSF. Now, just trying to get my slides moving forward here. There are a lot of divisions that helps to kind of organize how the NSF works. I, in particular, want to focus on the Division of Graduate Education. Let's see, there's a comment here. It's the screen being shared, I'm unable to see the slides. Is there any issue with anyone else about not being able to see the slides?
No, the slides are being shared. Thank you.
Okay, great. So again, the NSF has various divisions. We're just going to focus on one today, the Division of Graduate Education, which for our purposes helps to fund students interested in doing research in data science. Again, there are many different programs that the NSF has. We're not going to focus today on trying to give a comprehensive discussion of what's happening. But let me say that in one of these divisions, the Division of Graduate Education, there are various programs that are out there in which you can apply to help get funding. I am only going to focus on one of these many programs, and that's here at the very bottom, which is the GRFP. This is the Graduate Research Fellows Program. It was established in 1952, so it's been around for almost 70 years, and it provides funding for those who are interested in going off to graduate school to get a PhD. It actually gives you 3 years of financial support, and you can spread out that 3 years over a 5-year period. So you can decide to maybe use it for 1 year, take a break for a year, and then use it for 2 more years. It gives you $34,000 stipend, and it also gives you a little bit of extra money for educational allowance. These are things like helping to pay for tuition, giving you travel to go off to conferences, access to supercomputers, and what have you. The basic idea of the GRFP is to recognize talent out there that has the potential to become high-achieving scientists and engineers. The GRFP is certainly meant to help broaden participation in science and engineering, in particular to underrepresented groups, including women, persons who are members of groups historically underrepresented in STEM, persons with disabilities, and also with veterans. Let's see here. Yeah, if there are any issues, I see that there's kind of some comments here in the chat window, but I hope that the moderators will speak up.
No issues, just please continue.
All right. Now, there are a lot of things that the NSF does, but mainly what I want to point out here is that if you're considering going off to graduate school in data science, the GRFP is one of many things that you can do within the NSF to get funding. So I'm not going to focus on a lot of the information that's here. I just simply want to say that there is a $34,000 annual stipend. It is a 3-year fellowship, and it is very prestigious. For example, more than 40 of the fellows have gone on to become Nobel laureates. They've actually won Nobel Prizes. Almost 450 of the fellows over the last 70 years have gone on to become members of the National Academy of Sciences. And again, the whole idea of the GRFP is really to look for the talent that's going to be the next generation of individuals that will also be part of this prestigious work. Now, if you are interested in applying for the GRFP, there are some things you have to consider in terms of being eligible. It is only for US citizens, nationals, or permanent residents. So unfortunately, if you are not a US citizen or permanent resident, then you are not eligible to apply for the GRFP. They also do look for early career scientists. So that means either you are currently an undergraduate student, or maybe you've recently graduated, you're in grad school, your first, second, or third year of grad school, but really they're looking for very early career. So most of the people who apply will be students that are either currently undergraduates or they've just graduated within the last year or so. I'm not going to focus on the details of this today, but I will say that mainly the GRFP focuses on STEM or STEM education. So for example, if you're thinking about going into the health sciences and doing clinical work, the GRFP is not quite for you. If you're thinking about doing research that certainly deals with biostatistics, or really working specifically with numbers, then the GRFP is for you. But again, if you're thinking about doing things like clinical work that might be psychology, rehabilitation, those are actually for different types of programs. They aren't quite for the GRFP. Again, there are a couple of different levels in which you can apply for the GRFP. Mainly, the students who do apply for this are students who are currently undergraduates, so they don't yet have a bachelor's degree. You can apply as many times as you want while you are an undergraduate. You don't just have to be a senior. You can be a sophomore, you can be a junior. Things get a little bit more complicated if you already have a bachelor's degree. I'm not going to try to go over the details of this for the sake of time. I'll just say that here in the blue box on your screen, you can see the different levels if you've already gotten your undergraduate degree. Simply put, you can only apply once when you're in graduate school, And again, I'm not going to worry about the details here, but I'll be happy to share the slides with you afterwards. Now, how do you apply for the GRFP? I believe that it's been shown in the chat window that all of the information is here on the website. And simply put, you're going to need the following parts for your application. You will need a personal statement of 3 pages, a research statement of 2 pages, a transcript, and at least 2 letters of recommendation. So I'm going to try to quickly go through these 4 different parts of your application. Let me first say that in terms of deadlines, you do have until roughly the 3rd week of October. There are various staggered deadlines depending on what area you're going to apply in. Since most of you here, I assume, are in data science and have an interest in things like mathematics and statistics, what I'll say is that the computer and information sciences has a deadline of October 19th, but the mathematical, physics, and astronomy has a deadline of October 21st. So you want to be very careful about the deadlines. It isn't just one deadline for everyone. Again, things are staggered depending on what area you're going to apply in. Now, I mentioned that you'll need to have a personal statement, a research statement, your transcript, and letters of recommendation. Let me quickly go over those 4. For your personal statement, this needs to be max 3 pages, and you simply want to explain, why do you want to go to graduate school? Why do you want to get a PhD? So you have 3 statements to kind of explain all of this, and really they're looking for you to tell your personal story. Talk about your experiences, perhaps of doing research, taking math classes, working in data science. They really want to know more about you. That's why they call this the personal statement. There also is a research statement. The idea of the research statement is to actually discuss what's the research you plan to do in graduate school. Now, I know that this may feel a little bit weird because if you haven't started grad school, you may not know exactly the research that you want to do, but still, you do want to think about this in putting together the statement. Again, it's 2 pages. They're looking for you to talk about the kind of research that you plan to do. They're not going to hold you to this in grad school. So if you get the GRFP, it's not like they're going to look at your dissertation and say, well, did you do exactly what you claimed you were going to do? They more or less want to know, have you really thought through the research that you plan to do when you go to grad school? Again, letters of reference, you need at least 2. They recommend at least 3. But you have to have at least 2 letters of recommendation. They should really talk about you, your work. I do want to point out that the letters should focus on 2 areas: broader impact and intellectual merit. So I know the time is short, so I'm just going to very quickly say, what is it that I mean by those 2? Most of NSF likes to focus on placing things into 2 merit criteria: intellectual merit and broader impacts. Essentially, your entire application really is judged on these 2 areas. Even your letters your letter writers should focus on these 2 when they write about you. Intellectual merit, simply put, talks about how does the research fit into the larger area of doing STEM. So they'd like to know, for example, why is this project important? What do people really find interested here about the research?
You have about 20 more seconds.
Okay, that's all I need. On the other hand, broader impacts, broader impacts likes to focus more on how does this benefit society as a whole? So you may want to ask, can you perhaps give talks? Are you going to be involved with the math club? Are you going to help out other students, maybe in things like math clubs and in high school? So you want to talk a little bit more also about not just doing the research in a room, but maybe how this benefits society more generally. So what I'll do is I'll end here. I'm not going to take any questions, but I'll certainly be around afterwards. And again, let me thank Ellen Carpenter for letting me use the slides to put all this out there. So thanks for your time and attention.
Thank you so very much. And you all can start putting questions in the chat. Please use the Q&A button as the questions come up. The panelists can answer them as we move along. Thanks, Edward. Can you please stop sharing your screen? So next up, we have Reggie Leonard, who's the Associate Director of Career Connections and Community Engagement at the University of Virginia.
Excellent. Hi, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and set a timer for myself so that I can make sure that I kind of stick to the time. I did not prepare slides for today just for the sake of making this conversation flow a little bit more, but I'll talk to you about a few different things regarding careers in data science. I want to give you some examples of the types of problems that you can solve if you pursue a career in data science, so you can have an idea of what this actually looks like in practice. I want to talk to you about different types of data science you might think about. I want to talk to you about different opportunities within data science, so actual job titles that you might Google or search for on Handshake or whatever your career platforms are at your schools. I want to talk about ways to get involved in data science now and to gain experience, and then also ways to stand out. And so those are going to be the topics that we cover. And so not going to go too in depth on any of this stuff. It's more of a summary. So one of my favorite things to think about when I think about careers in data science is the fact that the future has not been invented yet. Nothing is inevitable. We have a lot of technology and a lot of change that's happening right now, but we're in the midst of a really big technological revolution. And that's one of my favorite things about data science, because being in this space, I get a chance to kind of see the future, and then data scientists are able to be a part of building the future, especially because we live in pretty algorithmically driven times. Two examples that I think of all the time when I think about how much things have changed. I look younger than I am, but I graduated from Bowie State University for undergrad back in 2007. And when I was there, I remember in 2003 applying for my first credit card. It took me 2 weeks to get my approval in the mail. I got a free t-shirt on campus. And then when I applied for a travel credit card maybe 3 years ago, it took me 11 seconds to get approval and to see what my credit limit was. I didn't realize that we were there, but basically algorithms modeled my credit history and were able to present me with a credit card offer on the spot. So financial access and things like that are things that we're kind of seeing with this new technological revolution driven by data science. Another example is when I opened my iPhone and I opened the Photos app and I searched for pictures of plants. I like taking pictures of plants. I knew that I had never tagged any photos because there's not a tagging feature that you can use, but plant pictures came up that I had taken in my photo album, again, using machine learning and computer vision, subsets of the data science discipline, or computer science, depending on how you talk about it. I was able to kind of find access to these photos that I had taken. And so I think that things like that are showing that we're in this algorithmically driven world. And so a few kind of bucket areas, so industries or places that you might apply data science include things like cybersecurity. So I think about cybersecurity, and I think the thing that I want you to understand in these examples is that regardless of what your major is, there are a lot of ways that you can apply data science in your respective discipline. So cybersecurity, there was a story that came out a couple of years ago where the app called Strava, where if you're a biker or a runner, you can track your routes, came out, where essentially there was a military base where a lot of military professionals were using the Strava app to track their run or to track their bike rides. And it was a clandestine secret base that ended up being shown on the Strava app in terms of a map of the outline of the facility, because the soldiers were actually using the app to track their runs. And so that ended up being a cybersecurity issue for the organization. And so if you want to be in cybersecurity, but also want to look at data science, there are opportunities at places like that. If you like to work on recommendations and things like that, Netflix exists. I think about Raman Chowdhury's team at Twitter, who's working on ethics. So if you want to work for a really big tech company, but are passionate about ethical considerations, that's a space that you can go into with data science. If you're passionate about journalism, I'm thinking about Ida B. Wells, of course, the OG data journalist, but also I think about ProPublica, the news publication that does a lot of data journalism as well. They publish a lot of data sets and leverage a lot of data to report on current events. I also think about people who are interested in music. You can go to Spotify. I'm looking forward to getting into my release radar playlist a little bit later. And that's all very algorithmically driven based on my music tastes. I think about sports and an alum that I've worked with who works at the NBA. She's a data scientist and got a chance to change the length of the timeout in an NBA game using data science. And so if you're interested in sports, you can get into it that way as well. So those are a few examples of some spaces that you can use data science. I love seeing some of the schools being shouted out in the chat too. I'm going to shout out BSU, but I'm here for all the love for all the AUC schools. And then also I want to get into some types of data science to consider as well before jumping into some more practical things. So when I say types of data science is defined in a pretty broad way, and it's defined pretty differently depending on what universities you go to or what companies you apply to or what researchers you talk to. So a few buckets that you might consider are analytics, machine learning, and research more generally. So when I think about analytics, I think about more business focused type of data science, where you're doing more reporting and dashboarding, you're doing presentations to different stakeholders in a company. You're essentially doing consulting, either internally or externally to the company that you work for. So that's analytics. And I would juxtapose that with machine learning, which is more coding heavy, where you're actually building algorithms, often that scale to a large amount of customers. And so that's not to say that the analytics focused data science roles don't build algorithms, but they're generally building algorithms to kind of test out or solve a problem or test out a solution. But when that solution needs to be pushed to 20,000 or 1 million customers, machine learning is really going to be where machine learning engineers are able to kind of take that and scale it up. So those are two types of data science roles that you'll often find when you're actually applying for data science jobs. And they're not going to be distinguished in that way in the job titles. It's more so looking at those types of tasks that I was just describing and see to what degree they're emphasized in the job description. And that will tell you where the job leans. It might lean more analytics heavy or more machine learning heavy. The reason why it's important to know that is because people come from data science from so many backgrounds. Some people come from technical backgrounds, some people come from less technical backgrounds. And so you may have more or less interest and more or less proficiency in doing the coding side versus the analytics side. And so knowing where you fall on that spectrum of desire and or skill at this point in your career is helpful when reading job descriptions to kind of know what to apply for. And then the third thing is research that I mentioned. And that's where you can go to a PhD program, which they're generally fully funded for folks who are studying something in this space. And so they have many research opportunities to both do your PhD, to do a postdoc afterwards, and even to do research in industry. There are lots of opportunities to do research in industry. Wow, my time is flying. And so some opportunities to consider are things that I like about data science: financial security. So if you have student loans, it's a great way to be able to pay those off quickly, often because the jobs are really high paid. Economic mobility and generational wealth are things to consider. One of the things that I'd love to see more of us consider is entrepreneurship, working at early stage startups and venture capital. I would love to see you all hiring each other for the companies that you all started in 5 years from now. And I would love to be reading about you all in Wired magazine and The Plug, if any of you all follow Sherelle Dorsey's work. And so would love to see that. And then some ways to get involved are definitely, in addition to the AUC Data Science Club, the AI for All, and the Student Data Science Symposium, consider joining NSBE if you haven't already. Look at Code for Atlanta. where you can do civic hack nights. Look at HBCU by South by Southwest, which often sends students from HBCUs to South by Southwest, which this year and last year were virtual. Next Play is another organization that's geared towards folks from traditionally underestimated backgrounds. Also look at Afrotech, which is a really cool virtual conference. DataKind and Data Science Connect conferences. I'll send a list of all of this stuff later. And then kind of finally to conclude with a couple of things to look into, definitely networking is a huge thing. So I challenge you to connect with maybe 5 data scientists on LinkedIn over the next week, just to kind of take a look at what opportunities exist. Also, in terms of LinkedIn, go to linkedin.com/alumni, and you can see alumni from your school. And that's where you can start to find some of those data scientists to connect with. And then for your resume, I'm just going to quickly hit the sections that you should have in your resume. You definitely want to have an education section. You want to have your skills section where you list things like Python and R and SQL, etc. You want to have a project section where you list 2 to 3 projects that you worked on either in class or on the side. You want to list relevant courses. You want to list clubs that you're in, and then your work experience. The thing that I want to say about resumes finally is that they exist to get you an interview, not a job. And so it's not about putting an exhaustive list of all the things you've ever done. It's more so enticing someone to want to talk to you more so that you can describe those things in an interview. And so kind of finally, for real, finally, I think that internships are really huge, and they are great ways for you to get return offers for full-time offers for jobs. And so the thing that I want you to know about that is that we're in heavy internship recruiting season right now. A lot of people don't realize that there are actually timelines. And so many consulting firms and banks have started recruiting in July this year, actually, and they'll be recruiting through the second week of September. And so make sure that you're going to your career fairs, make sure that you're going to the companies that you're interested in's websites. And then if you're interested in tech internships for larger tech companies, they're usually recruiting September through October. And that's usually for 3rd years or juniors. And so if you're a sophomore or a freshman, there might be opportunities that pop up for you in the spring. And so those are some things that I wanted you to know. And so kind of to conclude, the future hasn't been invented yet. I'd love to see you be a part of building the future. What are we going to do with all this future? Hopefully you can tell us. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Fred. Dr. Sri Taylor, welcome back to the AUC. Take us home.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for having me. It is indeed an honor to be here with you all. In the interest of time, I'm going to try and go through my notes here as quickly as I can, because I definitely want to hear from you all and allow you the opportunity to ask some of your questions. So as Dr. Washington has already mentioned, I am a CAU grad. I was on a 5-year program at Clark Atlanta University. My major was in mathematics. And during that 5-year time, I graduated with my bachelor's and my master's in mathematics. From there, I went on to North Carolina State University, got my PhD in applied math with a focus in computational math. Now, at that time, data science wasn't around in name. That term had not been coined, but the type of things that I was doing was very much aligned with data science. I graduated from NC State and went on to get my, I completed a postdoc at the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences in Research Triangle Park, which was right in the Raleigh-Durham area. And while I was there, I worked with biologists in trying to establish cancer models, if you will. They were doing the modeling, or they were doing their experiments in the laboratory, and we would collaborate, and I would try to do, I guess, what's now called like predictive modeling, or some cancer modeling in the computer. So I did that, and it's not, at that time, it wasn't very common for mathematicians to do postdocs. You didn't have to, but you could. But at the same time, it's important to kind of realize that when you get a PhD in math, and I got my PhD like over 20 years ago, it wasn't common for you to go and do a postdoc, meaning that you didn't have to do that. You could go right into academia or into the workforce. It was more common to go into academia. But I'm a first gen college grad. And so I kind of went through this process, not really knowing what it was that I wanted to do. I was just kind of taking it step by step without knowing what the end outcome was going to become. And so I went into this wanting to have options. I wanted to make sure that I had options along the way. So when people say, well, why did you get a PhD in math? Well, there was an opportunity for me to do so. And I didn't pay for any of my schooling, all the way through to the PhD. And then I even got another master's later on. And all of that was funded by someone else. But I like to have options because I like to challenge myself and I like to kind of have different experiences. And so from after I did my postdoc, I went on to the Center for Naval Analysis. And while I was there, the group, it's a think tank located in Alexandria, Virginia, which is where I am now. I'm in Northern Virginia. And I worked alongside other STEM professionals at the master's and PhD level in supporting the Marine Corps and the Navy. And so we would work on problems that were of interest to national security. So it was during that time, I was there with two colleagues who were also Spelman alum. They had graduated from North Carolina State, gotten their PhDs in operations research. The three of us got together and started our own consulting firm. And the name is Delta Decisions of DC. I ran the firm for about 13 years. And if there are questions about that, I can definitely go back and talk about that in a little bit more detail. And then I got a call from Georgetown University, and I was asked and invited to lead their program as the director of graduate studies for mathematics and statistics. So I was there. There are about 100 or so students in the program, and it's roughly about an 18-month to 2-year program where the students will get their master's in mathematics and statistics. So I was there for about 3 years, and most recently, I was invited to join Elder Research, which is a small business in the Northern Virginia area that focuses on artificial intelligence and data science. And so that is kind of I try to put it in a nutshell as to my trajectory is very non-traditional, which I like because it's very representative of me. And again, the emphasis being on options. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I still, don't know what I want to be when I grow up, but I do know that I have a really solid foundation and that I have options. So I'm very happy about that. So my advice to you all might say, well, how is this going to help me? And understand that my advice is just that, my advice. You can take it if it serves you well, or you can leave it if it doesn't. So I'll start with an internal focus and then go to an external focus. So the internal focus is to thine own self be true. Know who you are and please take time to know what it is that you want and where you want to be in life. And this was a pretty difficult thing for me to do because I like so many different things. And that's okay. If you can't really pinpoint it, but at least go through that process, the exercise of evaluating who you are, what your core values are, what it is that you want to do. And sometimes you can define what you want to do by defining what you don't want to do. That it's like an inverse problem there. So be open, go through the process, and don't go through it alone. Pull in your friends, people who know you, your family, solicit their feedback, and find out how people see you, how they view you, if you need help on kind of shaping this idea for yourself. Now, moving towards more of an external focus, I would also say there are some concrete things that you should do, and Mr. Leonard has already kind of touched on some of these. But remember that first impressions are lasting impressions. That was one thing that was drilled into us at Clark Atlanta University. You don't have a second chance to make a first impression. And so at all times, stay ready, stay camera ready, if you will, or just be ready to present yourself, develop an elevator speech where you can tell someone about yourself in a short amount of time. Go to networking events, but look at those opportunities to kind of let people know who you are and what your interests are. And remember, you can't do that until you go through the internal process of getting to know who you are and being able to articulate it. Another piece of advice is to go ahead and make sure you have kind of a collection of cover letters, or that you have at least a few drafts of a good cover letter that you can send out to organizations or to companies, expressing an interest in meeting with them. And cover letters don't necessarily have to go out only when you're looking for a job. You can say, well, I think I want to do an informational interview. That kind of takes the pressure off, relieves some of the anxiety, but it allows you to kind of start getting to know other companies in the industry and continuing to network while just learning about what they're doing and beginning to decide if you will be a good fit for an organization like that. And so you can go onto LinkedIn, visit their websites, collect all that information. And I have a few questions, sample questions, if anyone is interested in wondering, well, what should I do when I go for an information or interview? And then the last point is become a leader. Start practicing your leadership skills, and you start with yourself. We are all leaders, all of us right now, this very moment, because you have to lead yourself. And so refine that skill and understand what that means. And I thank you for the invitation, and I'm happy to take conversations and elaborate on anything that I've mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those important insights. And now I'll turn over to Bettina Gardner, the Administrative Director of the AUC Data Science Initiative. Bettina, what did you see with the poll?
So I'll share it now. So the results are, we wanted to get an idea of everyone in the audience. Thank you all for joining us today. So we have 52% of everyone here are currently enrolled students. So we're excited to see you here. And for those that are AUC students, welcome back on campus. We had a nice spread of across the various levels. We only had one freshman that completed it, but we had a number of sophomores, juniors, and definitely plenty of seniors, master's students, and PhDs. So definitely those in the later years, in the upperclassmen levels, or at the graduate student level. I hope that this was useful in what you're doing if you're going on to a higher degree level into grad school or looking for a job. In terms of geography, we had 19 people who are in Georgia, and then 24 who are in the US but not in Georgia. So if you are not in Georgia, can you please drop in the chat your city, state, and or country, because we have at least one international. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And then as far as what the students are seeking, we had 6 that are looking for a summer internship in data science, 9 who are looking for a research opportunity in data science. So hopefully you'll apply for the graduate research program. We have 10 looking for a full-time data science job after graduation. If you're looking for a job after graduation, can you put your graduation month and year in there so we have an idea of who's coming up to graduate? And then those that are looking for courses or other ways to learn data science, which we can help you with at the AUC Data Science Initiative. We have a list of courses that are available in the fall, and we'll be adding more things in the spring. And then we actually did also have the questions from the earlier presentation about, have you heard of the National Science Foundation? 75% of everyone here had, so that's wonderful. And I'm sure the other 25% know much more about it now. And then what does the National Science Foundation do? We had even a pretty good spread across those, particularly with hiring scientists, doing research and giving out money. So thank you all. I see some graduation months and years being put in there. I see that we have people from across the US. I see West Lafayette, Evansville. I see Dallas, Anaheim, California, Long Beach, Tallahassee. Lots of California folks. Thanks for joining us. It's a bit earlier for you guys. But yeah, so thank you all. And if you're looking for courses in data science, you can email us at the Data Science Initiative and we can send you some information. Just send us a quick email that says, hey, I'm wondering about upcoming courses. Particularly anyone that is a freshman, sophomore, junior, I'm going to put the AI for All link in. Please sign up for that today. And we can help you get into a really innovative course that we have there. I see we have a FAMU Rattler in there as well. But thank you all for being here.
Thank you so much for that, Bettina. And I should say that I'm also teaching a course this semester for upper level undergraduates. If you're interested, it's called Explorations in Data Science. We're taking the Matthew Henson approach to data science. You can figure that out later. It's a lot of fun. If you're interested, let me know ASAP. So just to remind us on the NSF poll, all the answers are correct except the vaccine ones. They don't make vaccines. The best part of working at NSF was you actually got to fund good projects and see good work evolve from that. So that was great. Okay, so I'm going to go to the questions in the Q&A. Please ask anything. Panelists, if you could turn on your cameras, that would be great. Thank you. So the first question comes and says, are courses available for recent graduates? So let's say I'm a recent graduate and I want to upskill in data science. Where do I go? How do I start? Where can I look for resources? Who would like to respond?
I can jump in. So a few places that you might go are LinkedIn Learning, Coursera. They have a really popular track from Johns Hopkins for a lot of data science courses, but there are a ton of data science courses that you can take on there. Those are a couple of places that I would go. Data Camp is another resource that you can use to just kind of do some boot camp style skill development, essentially. So if you don't necessarily want to take a class, but you just want to study Python or R or something along those lines, those are a few resources where I would start. And then organizations like AI for All, I know that you all are going to be doing something with them formally, and then they also have other opportunities too. And then there are boot camps that exist. And then you can always go back to school if you wanted to get a master's or a PhD as well. But those are a few places.
Thank you so much. We have a question that says, I've heard that once you learn one language, one programming language, the rest will come easier. There are so many different languages in data science: Python, R, SAS, SQL, MATLAB. I mean, the list is endless. Julia is my favorite because emojis, are variables. Anyway, once you learn one of these many languages, the rest will come easier. Which programming language should I start with to develop a foundation? Sheree, what say you?
Oh, that's a good one. Okay, so I'm from the old school where I learned Pascal and Fortran. So my my answer is, once you learn, you have the ability to think logically. That's the most important thing. But what I would say is, if you are able to determine where you want to be, what industry or area, because sometimes they will kind of dictate which one will kind of supersede the other. So for instance, if you want to go into government, it may be more so R than Python. So it kind of depends. MATLAB is maybe more academia. You know, MATLAB is making some strides, but also SAS, but MATLAB and SAS, you still have to pay for them. R and Python being open source is a huge advantage. So that's my 2 cents.
It's a great question. I always say that it's great. Yeah, you have to be able to have some flexibility there. So great. So the next question is the SAP Next Level program being held remotely or in person? So Robin from SAP, she is one of the attendees. Tommy, are you able to bring her to the floor? And maybe she could just answer for us. So SAP and Coca-Cola, they funded our AUC Virtual Computer Lab, which is essentially a computer lab in a virtual environment, so we can do data science research and also teaching. So Robin put in the chat that it is in person. So she said SNT is in person in Palo Alto. Oh, I like Palo Alto. That's in California. San Ramon. Great. And Robin put a link in the chat earlier. Robin, you may want to put it in there one more time about positions at SAP they're hiring. And they would really love to hire in some great people. Thank you so much. So are there any other questions? So Dr. Goins, you've sat on a number of review panels for the GRFP. If I'm a student, it's kind of August and I'm kind of going crazy starting up classes and I got to figure out, wait, this is graduate fellowship. I should do it. This is like a badge of honor. It's a gold medal for the Olympics, but for NSF as a grad student sort of thing. Where should I start? I mean, I gotta buckle down right now and get it done. Where do I start?
I would say right away, talk to a faculty member. You're certainly going to need a faculty member for a letter of recommendation, but the more important thing you need help on is writing the research statement. I think a lot of students think that a lot of these fellowships are merit-based, meaning that you just get really good grades and then you get it. That isn't quite the way it works for the GRFP. You really want to think of this as a research proposal. You are trying to get funding to do research. Since a lot of students really don't know what that means, I highly recommend talk to a professor. Just find someone, just say you're thinking about applying for this thing. You maybe need a letter of recommendation from this person, but you really need help in figuring out what's a good problem to talk about? How do you write a research statement? What does it mean to say that you're going to put it together here within the 2 pages? But I would say right away, please talk to a faculty member, say you want to do this, but try to get help on putting that research statement together.
That's great. Thank you so very much, because that GRFP, that fellowship can go with the student. The student is the PI. And I also put in the chat that NSF has an initiative harnessing the data revolution. So if you are going into these interdisciplinary fields, NSF calls them convergence, it's a good time to apply. Let's put it that way. It's a really good time to apply. NSF likes data science. And so check out that harnessing the data revolution I put in the chat there. Great, thank you so much. So another question's coming. This is a great question. I'm working in industry. How do I get research experience? If I'm in industry, how do I make that work? Reggie, do you have any thoughts on that?
So I have 2 initial thoughts. One thought is I guess it depends on the relationship with the person's supervisor or the flexibility of their role, but there might be an opportunity to take on new projects at their current role and express that interest, especially as leaders like to hear professional development goals of employees because it helps to keep them at their organization for longer if they can provide those opportunities. So there might be an opportunity to basically scope out a small project and say, like, can I do this as a pilot, and maybe do some research that way. And then the other thing that I was thinking about is just kind of some of the more local kind of things like Code for Atlanta and DataKind and things like that, where people are essentially doing pro bono work for organizations in the community. And that might be another opportunity. It's going to take some more time outside of work, but that might be a way that you can actually get your hands dirty on some real world data and things like that. And sometimes those projects are more build a dashboard or do this ad hoc analysis, but other times they are more longer term research oriented. And so those are a couple of initial thoughts that come to mind. I'm curious, Sri, if you have any thoughts as well from your vantage point.
Oh, wow. So at Elder Research in Northern Virginia, where I am, we actually have a research and development sector of the company, and it's a small business, but our culture is very much kind of like an academic culture where we get together every Friday. We are a federal contractor, meaning that our contracts, we serve the federal government. So we're like the data scientists for the data for the government. But on Fridays, we get together and we collaborate. And there's a lot of camaraderie and collaboration that goes on where there's an exchange of information so that that professional development continues to happen. And so, but we're considered industry, but there's a lot of advanced knowledge sharing going on. So when you say working in industry, you kind of have to qualify that. Do you mean like, are you working at a restaurant and you're trying to get research experience, or are you working somewhere else like Elder Research? Because if you're working somewhere like Elder Research, that is, you can just switch teams and actually get that type of research experience and get paid for it.
That's great. Edward, do you have anything to add?
I maybe just wanted to add going in a slightly different direction. I know that the question here was about working in industry. I worked for government for the National Security Agency for a couple of summers. And of course, the same kind of question comes up there. It's not so much the question of can you get research experience, it's more, can you get research experience that will be published outside of kind of the confines of working there for the government. You know, of course, they want to keep everything internal. They don't want you to go off and present at conferences, but it's still possible to do. In the summers that I was there, I told my boss I wanted to do research, not just with what's happening internally, but actually be able to do a project that I could talk about externally. And as long as you're upfront about that, you know, they are going to have to worry about whether or not the security clearance is going to allow the research to be published externally. They will have to double check whether you can talk about this at a conference, but it's still doable. You just have to ask up front, but it is doable.
Thank you so much. So now I'm just going to ask each panelist to give just a quick, very quick, what is that one tip that you'd like to leave our participants with? What is that one tip for getting that data science, advancing their data science career, moving forward? What's that one thing that you could advise? Edward, do you want to start?
Sure. I think Reginald may have said this earlier. Really, the sky's the limit when it comes to data science. I would say, think outside of the box. Don't just think of this as you're going to get a degree, now you're able to do data science. I mean, it really is a matter of think what are crazy things that you might want to do. Analyzing data that might help out your community, or just writing a brand new computer program that's never been done before. I would just say, just really think very big, because data science is a burgeoning field. Nobody really knows what it is, but because you are on the cusp of something really great, really just think sky's the limit.
Thank you. Reggie?
I think that I will piggyback off of Shree's comment about values, and that resonated so deeply. That's usually the first conversation I have with students, with job seekers, with job changers, et cetera. And the thing that I'm thinking about really is the fact that we all live in this world together. And so a lot of times we have career conversations in a vacuum, as though they don't impact our world or the way that we experience it. And so I talked about how the future is not created yet. And so I think data science science has a big part to play in that. And so think about what you value, think about what type of world you want to live in, and what types of organizations are working on those types of problems, or will allow you to enact and live out your values in your personal life, and pursue opportunities in those spaces intentionally, because, you know, at the end of the day, like, we're all living our lives, and we want to enjoy them, you know, and live them well. And so being considerate of your values and where you see yourself in the world is what I would say.
Great, thank you. And Cherie, if you allow me, let me give you a pitch. I want to make sure we answer all questions. This just came in. Can you give this one tip of advice for a graduate student in mathematics who's curious about data science and learning different programming language? What can this grad student do to figure out what to do after graduation? What is that tip that you could provide?
Oh my gosh. Okay, that was a curveball. Okay.
Yeah.
I would say it may be a little of a different, non-traditional answer, but I'm gonna go with it because this is what my heart is telling me. And it's really you have to retreat and spend time reflecting, because I can't give you that answer. This has to be within you, because this is your life. And the moment that you realize that you are the captain of your fate, and that you can set this course and go in the direction that you want to go in, you will be successful. And those metrics and the milestones that you're trying to reach, that you think other people are placing on you, you begin to set them for yourself. And when you set them for yourself and you pull ownership and you have ownership of it, you will be successful every single time. So I hope that's helpful.
I'm sure you give me goosebumps. Love it, love it. So thank you all. Thank you, Reggie, Cherie, Ed Ray, for a wonderful panel to really just kick off our AUC data seminar series. We will be back on Friday, September 10th with Dr. Victor McCrary, who's the Vice Chair of the National Science Board and also the VP for Research at the University of the District of Columbia. So we'll be back on September 10th talking about how the government is advancing data science. So come back and we will have this video posted up on our Facebook right after and also on our YouTube channel. We look forward to seeing you all again. Thanks again, panelists.